What's up YouTube, it's Hector from Not2Nerdy and welcome back to another episode of Warframe Wednesday. Now, hopefully you guys enjoyed the gameplay in the background, but I do have a couple topics I do want to discuss in this video. So let's get started with this right away. The first topic I do want to discuss is the Xbox One, of course. I feel like every single time there's news or something, like it's always about Microsoft or Xbox One or something. But this time I want to talk about the Xbox One and the 10% more power, or is it really 10% more power? Now, if you guys didn't know, the Kinect that came with the Xbox One did take up 10% of its GPU power. So, you know, people said that that might have been the reason why certain games like Call of Duty or even the new Tomb Raider, why it wasn't 60 frames per second. So Microsoft, made this huge statement, by a bunch of different people that work with Microsoft trying to convince people that, it doesn't matter, power doesn't matter, it's going to come down to the games. That's all they kept saying. If that's how they really felt, then why all of a sudden now they make an announcement that they're going to change the performance? They're going to allow 8% of that 10% that's saved for the Kinect, 8% of that power is going to go back towards the developer's use. So that means that they can improve the gameplay, improve the graphics, of the game. Now, there's a couple things wrong with this. The first thing that I think is wrong with this is the whole time you kept talking about the games, that it didn't really make a difference, and it's not that much of a difference, that everyone's blown it out of proportion, and blah, 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 all that stuff that they kept saying, Well, if it doesn't make a difference, then why are you trying to grab as much power as you can from the Xbox One? Now, I know those Xbox fanboys are going to say, well, isn't it always good to improve your console? Yes, it is good to improve your console, but not this quickly, not like this. Why are you pulling 8%? Okay? 8%? Can I explain to you guys that that's not going to do anything for those people that think, and now they're going to be able to get back to 60 frames per second like the PlayStation 4? Wrong. The reason why the PlayStation 4 is that quick is because of its RAM, alright, the DDR5 RAM, and also on top of that, it is also the GPU to begin with. So, yes, improving 8%, percentage for power for the GPU, yes, it sounds great in theory, but real world speed, it's not going to make that much of a difference. So if you think that you're gonna see a bunch of frame rates per second increase, it's not gonna happen like that. Now, will it improve certain things? Absolutely. Maybe improve load times for games. Maybe improve certain things in-game features, but it's not gonna improve frames per second that much. 8% won't do that much. It won't make that much of a difference. So for a company that kept saying that it's not. It's not important. The graphics are not important. They're both very similar consoles, that the PlayStation 4 isn't that much superior. Then why are you trying to make all these differences? You're trying to make all these changes to improve your console to compete with something else. Because now the other question to me is, now that you left only 2% for the Kinect, how well is the Kinect going to work? I'm pretty sure you saved 10% for a reason. You had it for a purpose with the Kinect. So why all of a sudden you're pulling that away from the Kinect? Did you never need the 10% to begin with? Or is there a functionality that's not going to work as good anymore because you took away a percentage of power? That's certain things people have to look at. Yeah, you're looking at, now you have 8% going towards the games, but now what about the Kinect? If you didn't need that much percentage for Kinect, what are you doing? Are you pulling away all the functionalities in-game? So a game that doesn't use Kinect, you pull away all the functionality because the Kinect isn't needed? Well, if that's the case, why is there not an Xbox One that's being sold without a Kinect? It's so many questions that you have to ask with this. It just doesn't make any sense. I just feel like Microsoft doesn't know what they're doing. I feel like they lost their ways. They have no idea what to do, what console to make. They didn't know what they're doing. They thought they were going to make a brand new console that's going to pull all the casual gamers, you know. They're going to pull what the Nintendo Wii did, you know. They looked at a Wii and said, oh wow, we could do the same thing. And now they try to do that, but yet they try to hold on to the hardcore gamers. And then now they realize that you really can't have both. You really can't have the casual gamers and hardcore gamers. You have to make a console for a target audience, and you have to stick with that. But obviously, they don't know who their target audience is. I really feel like they are completely lost, because you're talking about all this stuff about the Kinect, hyping up the Kinect, about live TV and all this stuff, and now all of a sudden, now you're pulling functionality away from the Kinect to go back towards the hardcore gaming to make it more, you know, make it better towards the gaming side, which I already explained to you, it's not going to do that much of a difference. But it is a slight tweak, a slight improvement, which a slight improvement that's never been tested either, so we don't even know the functionality of it once they increase that, but that's beyond the point. So who exactly are they doing this for? You know, what are they doing? I just am completely lost in Microsoft. I just don't know what they're trying to do. I don't know who they're trying to do it for. I mean, in theory, you're like, great, you know, 8% increase of power. But in reality, you're not going to notice that difference. It'll be very, very minimal, if anything. You know, it's already too late because the hardware is, you know, it was the design of the hardware that's limited them. So, like, they're trying to say or do whatever they can to try to win people back. But in reality, when you look at two consoles, okay, you're looking at two consoles. One, right, has just better looking games on it. Now, I'm not saying the PlayStation 4 has better looking games right now, but I'm saying, like, if you look at the third-party games, just third-party multi-plat games, okay? Why do they look and run better on the PlayStation 4 compared to the Xbox One? You know, that's the thing that Microsoft has to understand. That it's not like the last generation where, even though the PlayStation 3 had better specs, people felt comfortable programming for Xbox 360, therefore games always look better on the 360 for the most part, and you know, they pretty much develop on the 360 and they ported it over to the PlayStation 3. That's usually how it went. It's not like that anymore. Now you could tell the difference. Now, if a console is, you know, has better hardware, now all they have to do is place the game. You know, they can even start from PC build and then decrease the resolution slightly because they're pretty much PCs now. So now you'll be able to tell the difference of resolution and frames per second.
Keep searching.
You know, that's not good for Microsoft at all. The fact that they had to lock Tomb Raider at 30 frames per second, and there's times where it dropped below 30 frames per second. It was at 24 frames per second a couple times. You know, if you haven't seen that video, definitely go check it out by oh man, I think it's Digital Boundaries, or I forgot the name of the company. But yeah, like they pretty much showed it, you know, like they were locked at 30 frames per second. Now, not to mention, look better on the PlayStation 4. Like, it was a slight improvement, but the one thing you can notice is the water. Like, I noticed that in Assassin's Creed 4 for the PlayStation 4, that the water looks so amazing with the graphics, and with it being pretty much a steady, it's between 45 to 60 frames per second, is pretty good at 1080p. You know, now don't get me wrong, obviously it's gonna look better on the PC, but since it is an improvement for the game Tomb Raider, it actually did look better on the PlayStation 4 than PC version, but that's because they changed the way, you know, Lara Croft looked, and they changed a lot of things to the game, so it just naturally looked better on the PlayStation 4. But let's be honest, if that definitive version came out for PC, obviously it's going to look the best on PC. But that's a different point. The point I'm trying to make is the Xbox One is just not built to be as powerful, and they have to understand it. Like, it's not, they're trying to claim that, oh, later on when people get used to developing for it. No, people already know how to develop for this architecture. Now, are they gonna find a way to pull more power from it? Yeah, eventually they'll find a way. But do not tell me that later on they're gonna find power that they're gonna be able to run games 60 frames per second that they couldn't find before. That's not the way it works. Now, the way it should be working right now for developers is that they're slowly getting games that are at between 45 to 60 frames per second, but later on in the future they're gonna figure out a way to make it cleaner, a cleaner 60 frames per second where it's not as jittery. That's what happens. Not the other way around where they're just gonna magically find 30 more frames per second. That doesn't happen. That's not the way it works. That's not the way it works if you have a gaming PC and you're playing Battlefield 4, and for some reason you're only getting 30 frames per second, and you're hoping in the future, well, maybe if I tweaked a couple things on my computer, it's gonna work. No, it's not gonna work. You're not gonna get 60 frames per second by tweaking things. You're gonna have to actually buy different hardware to, a different GPU or something to fix your computer. You're gonna have to change your design to make it run 60 frames per second. It's not gonna magically do it on its own by software updates and stuff like that. It doesn't happen like that. You have to have the hardware to begin with for it to run 60 frames per second. So that's the problem Microsoft is going to have in the future. But this whole 10% more power, or actually 8%, even though they kept saying the Kinect is controlling 10% power, they're only going to increase it by 8%, which in reality, I'm telling you guys right now, it's not going to make that much of a difference. So that's pretty much it. That's all I want to talk about for that part of Microsoft. So I'm going to jump into another part of Microsoft where Microsoft bought Gears of War franchise from Epic Games. Now, I like Gears of War, but I think Gears of War Judgment pretty much showed that people lost interest in it. It's not a great series anymore, but yet Microsoft bought it. I think they bought it a little too late, because in reality, who really thinks Gears is relevant? Now, maybe the next Gears might be decent, but you see, here's the problem that I have with Microsoft. And I know this sounds like I'm making a video against Microsoft, but I'm going to continue PlayStation 4 and stuff like that, so we'll get to that in a second. But for right now, I think Microsoft is making a huge mistake. Microsoft loves their franchises, Halo, they love Gears of War. But they have to realize that they need to start taking chances on games. Now, I know some people are going to say, well, they are taking chances, there's different games that are going to come out in the future. They're taking chances like Titanfall. That's not taking chances, first of all. Because, once again, when I'm talking about taking chances, I'm talking about Microsoft Studios taking chances. I'm not talking about Microsoft buying third-party companies and be like, oh, you guys make this game. We're going to buy this game off you. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about homegrown games from their studios, which they have Microsoft Studios, don't forget. I think people forget that because all the Microsoft does is buy third-party games. They need to start making their own game and start making them creative. All these shooters are not going to help them in the long run, because as you saw, like, as good as Halo 4 was, it didn't sell as well as other Halos. It was good though, I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty good, but it died off quickly. People stopped playing it. I mean, people play it and stuff online a little bit, but it's not like it used to be. And don't get me wrong, it still did very, very well. Now, Gears Judgment died off really quickly. Like, did not do as well as other Gears. And you saw the change. Gears 1, great. Gears 2, even better. Gears 3, it started to die off a little bit, but I think that's what turned people away from Gears Judgment. And once Gears Judgment came around, people didn't like it as much. So Microsoft has to understand they gotta start taking chances. That's the one thing Sony does well. They take chances on new IPs. Now it might kill them in the end because, you know, sometimes the game doesn't work. It doesn't take off like it should. But at least they take the, you know, the chance, because that's the way it works. You know what I mean? Look at The Last of Us. That was a huge risk for Sony, and it worked well. Now Beyond Two Souls, that game was pretty good, but did it do great? It didn't do great, but it was a, you know, different style of game. It was a different game. It's stuff like that. Like, you gotta find a way to try different things, and I think Sony does that better. Now, not everything Sony gets is homegrown either, but for the most part, Sony has a lot of studios that are under, you know, Sony. So they're just PlayStation. And I think that's the way you gotta do it. You gotta have a bunch of studios and let them take chances. But Microsoft seems to just buy studios and they don't take as much chances. And I honestly think that that's not a good thing at all. That's really not a good thing when you decide not to take any chances, because in the long run you're only going to hurt your company, you know, because if you take a chance and the game's successful, think about it, you could turn that into a franchise. You could make a couple more episodes of that game. You know, that's something that you should want to do as a company. It's something that will improve your company overall, you know. I mean, look, just think about in the past, like Uncharted was, you know, the first one no one knew what it was going to turn into, and then look at what it turned into now. It's a franchise. Now, I personally think Sony has to realize the same thing when it comes to certain franchises like Uncharted and God of War. Eventually, they're going to die out. Eventually, people are not going to want to buy them anymore. So that's why Sony takes chances on new IPs, because eventually the franchises that they have now are going to die out. Now, I'm not saying Gears of War is dead yet. I'm not saying that at all. I think, in fact, maybe the next one might be pretty good. But the fact that they don't have one studio working on that means that that's going to be bouncing around from studio to studio. And that's not what you want. You want one studio that's used to a game, continue working on that game. You don't want it to bounce around from different studios, because guess what? It's not the same studio. It's going to be a different game. It's going to be designed and played differently. You don't want that. So that's pretty much it for Microsoft. I'm going to leave them alone now, I promise. We're going to move on to PlayStation 4. The PlayStation 4 might get PS1 and PS2 emulators. Now, I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm kind of leaning towards this is a bad thing. Now, hear me out. I know a lot of people might be happy about this, but for me, I think this is just shooting Sony, you know, they're shooting themselves in the foot. They already announced PlayStation Now. You know, people are, you know, got excited about and all this stuff. That's an opportunity for them to introduce PlayStation 1 games, PlayStation 2 games, and have people join the service and play those games through the streaming service. This helps Sony, you know, this pretty much helps Sony in the long run with different games. You know, they need all the help that they could get right now with money. So in a business sense, it doesn't make sense for Sony to do this, because then people can play their PlayStation and PlayStation 2 games on the PlayStation 4, which means less people are going to want to buy the PlayStation Now, even though it's a streaming service. In reality, you want people to be like, well, I want to play this game so bad, I'm just going to stream it on my PlayStation 4. But now, if they could buy the actual game and put it in their PlayStation 4, which one do you think people are going to do? They're probably going to buy the actual game instead of using the streaming service. Because we know the streaming service is going to have some sort of lag on it. You know, so in a business sense, it doesn't make any sense why Sony's doing that. If you're looking at the consumer's point of view, like a gamer's point of view, I think it's pretty cool. The fact that you could just put your PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 in the PS4. Of course, it's not going to run as good as it would run if you were, you know, playing it on a PlayStation 1 or PlayStation 2. But I mean, I still think it's pretty cool. So, you know, I don't know. For the most part, I don't think it's a good idea by Sony. I think that they, we're not thinking about the business sense of it, where they need as much people as they could get, as many people as they could get to join PlayStation Now, that streaming service. So the fact that you're going to give people emulators to place inside a console so they could play older games and not use your service, then I just think that's not too smart, to be honest with you. But I digress. That's pretty much it. It was a quick subject I want to talk about. Now, the last topic I do want to discuss has to deal with a video game called Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. Wow, can I say that? Shadow of Mordor. Now, this obviously has to do with Lord of the Rings. This game, if you look at the game, it looks awesome. But when you look at this game, it pretty much takes aspects from other games and puts it in the same game. Now, I'm talking about in the beginning of the demo, you just see how much it looks exactly like Assassin's Creed. I'm talking about the body movement, the way they jump. Even when the person jumps off the building and kills someone, it looks like you're, dropping down to assassinate someone from Assassin's Creed. Now, the reason why I brought this up as a very debatable topic is this a good thing? Is this something that you could let slide when games copy off each other? Now, yes, they took the good mechanics out of Assassin's Creed, so at least it's something that's good out of Assassin's Creed. But later on in the demo, you also see that they also copied off Batman Arkham, Arkham Asylum, or Arkham City, whichever one. Like, they just copy the same mechanics. Is that a good thing? Is that something that you want in a game, that it's just pretty much copying off other people? Now, keep in mind, they do have aspects that are their own. There's a whole AI physics where the enemies remember you and stuff like that. Like, their character develops throughout the game, and you can see them change throughout the game if you leave them be, or if you decide not to kill them later on, they'll remember that. There's certain things in the game that's pretty cool that makes it their own, but at the same time they do use a lot of movements and other animations from other games. Is that a bad thing? Do you think that it is okay for a game to pretty much copy your style? This is not like it was just one small little game. This is Assassin's Creed. That's a pretty big franchise. And it's very, very obvious when you look at it. Even Adam Sessler talked about this, and he talked about how he could not get over in the first couple minutes the fact that how much it looked like Assassin's Creed. More specifically, Assassin's Creed 2. But regardless, it looks exactly like Assassin's Creed. I personally think that it's a little messed up that they're doing that. I mean, I'm sure the games could be great, and I'm actually looking forward to play this game. But at the same time, it is kind of messed up that they couldn't be creative and do their own thing, their own style. And they try to dodge the question when Adam Sessler asks the developer, or I think it is a PR person, but they asked him about, what do you think that people are going to say it looks like Assassin's Creed? And he pretty much tried to dodge it by saying that, well, this is Assassin in the game, so, that's pretty much the way Assassin would move. So they're pretty much saying that, all Assassins and all stealth type games will move the same way. But in reality, it's not. Because before Assassin's Creed, there really wasn't a movement like that. When people were climbing, moving side to side, there really wasn't stuff like that. Assassin's Creed pretty much made that on their own. Were there assassin games and stealth games before that? Absolutely. But they each had their own little thing to it. And I feel that this game definitely copied off it. But, I mean, as a gamer, I'm sure the game's going to be amazing. I can't wait to play it. But as someone that's also a software developer, I think that that's not that creative, and I think that that's wrong to do, to be honest with you. It's okay to be inspired by a game, but to literally copy the movement of a game, and then maybe you copy one movement, okay, but there's a bunch of different movements, from the way they climb, from the way they kill people. It was just a mess of how close it was to Assassin's Creed 2. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I want to discuss. So out of all the topics I discussed, let me know about what you think. So the Xbox One and the extra 8% more power it's going to get. Also, Microsoft buys Gears of War from Epic. PlayStation 4 might get PS1 and PS2 emulators. And Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. Let me know what you think about any of these topics down in the comments below. So that's pretty much it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Warframe Wednesday. I know I kept screwing up in the game as well, but you can definitely comment about the gameplay as much as it sucks. But that's pretty much it. So this is Hector from Not2Nerdy. I'm out. See you, YouTube.
Mission complete. The captive has been liberated. You will be rewarded for this, Tenno.